Impacts of a tsunami. The effects of a tsunami are devastating. They are one of the world's worst natural disasters that can hit a country. Tsunami damage is first caused by the immense force of the tidal wave hitting the shoreline. Flooding then continues to cause damage for several more weeks. The effects of the tsunami on the country during this period range from destruction and damage, death, injury, millions of dollars in financial loss, and long lasting psychological problems for the people of the region. The initial impact of the tsunami is often publicized across the world through the news media. However, the actual effects continue for many years after the natural disaster strikes. Destruction. The amount of energy and water contained in a huge tsunami can cause extreme destruction when it strikes land. When the giant breaking waves of tsunami batter, which means to hit the shoreline, they can destroy everything in their path. And although the waves can be tall, the most damage is caused by the huge mass of water behind the initial wave front, as the height of the sea keeps rising fast and floods powerfully into the coastal area. The water is traveling at a very high speed, and the large volume of water carries and sweeps up anything with it. Objects like buildings are destroyed just by the sheer weight of the water. Large objects like ships and boulders can be carried several miles inland before the tsunami finally stops. Tsunami waves destroy boats, buildings, bridges, cars, trees, telephone lines, power lines, and just about anything else in their way. Once the tsunami waves have knocked down these things on the shore, they may continue to travel for several miles inland, sweeping away more trees, buildings, cars, and other man made equipment. Death. One of the biggest and worst effects of the tsunami is the cost of human life because, unfortunately, escaping a tsunami is nearly impossible. Hundreds and thousands of people are killed by tsunamis. There is very little warning before a tsunami hits land. As the water reaches towards land, it leaves very little time to map an escape plan. People living in coastal regions, towns, and villages have no time to escape. The violent force of a tsunami results in instant death, most commonly by drowning. Buildings collapsing, electrocution, and explosions from gas, damaged tanks, and floating debris, which means material, are another cause of death. Disease. Tsunami waves and the receding water are very destructive to structures. Receding means that it's slowly going back to the ocean. The areas close to the coast are flooded with seawater during a tsunami, damaging the infrastructure such as sewage and fresh water supplies for drinking. Flooding and contamination of drinking water can cause disease to spread in the tsunami area. Illnesses like malaria occur when water is stagnant, which means it's not moving, and contaminated, which means it gets infected. Under these conditions, it is difficult for people to stay healthy and for diseases to be treated, so infections and illnesses can spread quickly, causing even more death. Environmental impacts. Tsunamis not only destroy human life, but they have a devastating effect on insects, animals, and plants, and even other resources. A tsunami changes the landscape. It uproots trees and plants and destroys animal habitats such as nesting sites for birds. Land animals are killed by drowning, and sea animals are killed by pollution if dangerous chemicals are washed away into the sea, poisoning marine life. The man made environment is also impacted. Solid waste and disaster debris are the most critical environmental problem faced by a tsunami hit country. Recycling and disposal of this waste in an environmentally sensitive manner, where possible, is very critical. Contamination of soil and water is the second key environmental impact of a tsunami. Salination, salt water getting into normal water, of water bodies such as rivers, wells, inland lakes can occur in most cases. This will also affect the fertility of agricultural lands or the ability for crop fields in the future to grow as many crops. The cost. Massive costs hit communities and nations when a tsunami happens. Victims and survivors of the tsunami need immediate help from rescue teams. Governments around the world may help with the cost of bringing aid to devastated areas. The United Nations, Red Cross, or other community groups provide different kinds of aids and service. There might be donations from people who have seen pictures and stories about the area in the media. Reconstruction and cleanup after a tsunami is huge. Infrastructure like roads, buildings, electricity, all must be replaced, and unsafe buildings demolished and rubbish cleared. Loss of income in the local economy and future Losses from the destruction of infrastructure will be a problem for some time to come. The total financial cost of the tsunami could be millions or even billions of dollars. Psychological effects. Victims of tsunami events often suffer psychological problems which can last for days, years, or an entire lifetime. Survivors from one tsunami were found to have PTSD, which stands for post traumatic stress disorder, when they were examined. These people were suffering from grief and depression after their homes, businesses, and loved ones were taken from them.